Welcome to this afternoon's presentation. We're with the Canadian Wildlife Federation. My name is Melissa, and I will be hosting. And we have Karen Vanderwolf today, who is a bat researcher with CWF. So for those of you who don't know, hi. For those of you who don't know, CWF is one of the biggest conservation organizations in Canada. We have over 300,000 supporters. So we're pretty big, and we've been around for over 50 years, so that's pretty exciting. And what we do is we try to help Canadians appreciate nature and make sure the habitat and the wildlife that we have in Canada is around for a long time for future generations. So moving along, help the bats. That's why you guys are here. We have an excellent website, helpthebats.ca, so if you want more information after this webinar, please visit that website. Just a little bit of an agenda here. You'll get to meet Karen, our personal bat researcher. We'll ask her what makes bats unique, why they are important. We've heard they're in trouble in the news, so we'll ask her what that's about, and white nose syndrome. And then most importantly, we'll find out how you can help the bats. So Karen, I'll let you take over for a bit. Maybe you can just introduce yourself and let us know what's going on in this picture.
Okay. So right now I'm in St. John, New Brunswick. I actually work out of the New Brunswick Museum, employed by the Canadian Wildlife Federation. So for the past years, I've actually been studying bats in the New Brunswick caves. This is me in my Tyvek suit at the entrance of one of the caves. We have to wear special gear so that we don't spread white nose to different caves. Did you want me to go into more detail about what I do?
Yeah, sure. You can let us know why you research bats and tell us, share any details that you want to let us know.
All right. So we started our research in 2009. So one of the things I do is go to the 10 known hibernacula in the province and monitor the bat populations. So in 2009, there was no white nose syndrome in New Brunswick. Populations were healthy. There were about 7,000 of them overwintering in the caves. And as time progressed, in 2011, we actually found white nose syndrome in the province, and the bat population has just crashed. So I was sort of witness to this calamity of wildlife disease.
Oh, wow.
So it was really something to see, that's for sure. I sort of view it as a historic moment and feel privileged that I got to see the bat population before it crashed. So to see that healthy bat population that we probably won't see again for, well, maybe ever, but certainly not for a long time, decades, maybe hundreds of years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's kind of a neat time to be looking at bats, I guess, and maybe a bit of a happy accident, right?
Oh, yes, for sure, but it's also quite depressing to see that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of people are, looking at this webinar and thinking, oh gosh, bats. Some people think they're so cool and they're really cute, and other people are super afraid, and those tend to be the more vocal people for whatever reason. What would you tell people who are kind of afraid of bats, or maybe they think some of the myths are true? I don't know if you've got a few tips there.
For sure. There's a lot of misconceptions about bats. I mean, animals people normally see, which I find one of the great things of studying them, because then I get to see this cryptic animal most people don't know much about. But bats, I mean, they're active at night. We're diurnal, so we don't. We're sort of afraid of the dark, and bats are at home in the dark, so that's part of the way that people are afraid of them. But bats are not aggressive. They're not going to bite you readily unless you actually grab them and try to do something with them physically. All the bat species in Canada, they're not interested in humans at all. There's only 3 bat species that drink blood, and they're all located in South America. So chances of you seeing one, pretty nil. Another consideration is rabies. Some bats do have rabies, but this is less than half of 1% of the wild population. So the chances of you finding a rabid bat are pretty low. That being said, you certainly don't want to risk that. So if you do find a bat, you definitely don't want to pick it up with your hand. You want to wear gloves if you have to touch the bat at all. If you find a bat in your house, like flying around your living room or something, the best thing to do is just to open the doors and windows and hopefully the bat will leave on its own. If it doesn't leave, what you can do is put a container over it, slide cardboard under the bat, and just release it outside with gloves. That's the safest thing to do. But there's really no reason to be afraid of bats. They're really interesting creatures, actually. Very different, of course, but they certainly they're not going to do you any harm. Oh, and the myth of them getting into your hair. Bats will sometimes swoop over you, like when you're walking in the evening. All they're doing is eating the insects that are swarming around your head. So actually they're doing you a favor. They're certainly not going to get tangled in your hair or anything like that.
Yeah. Thanks for that. That's good to clear that up. I know we had a school group come to the head office, and they were helping us put together some bat boxes, and a lot of the little girls were super afraid that the bats would get in their hair, so that's definitely a good tip. So you kind of touched on this a bit before, but I'm curious to know the best part about being a bat researcher. I mean, you said you got to witness kind of the before and the after of white nose syndrome, but is there anything else to add to that?
Well, as a biologist, I'm really keen about field work. So going into nature and actually seeing the animals in their natural environment. And of course, for bats during the winter, the place you have to go is caves. I just really enjoy this part of being a bat researcher, getting to go into these caves, seeing bats and all the other organisms of the cave ecosystem. And that's the part I really enjoy. And also just finding out new facts about an animal that's generally unknown by the public. And meeting people, a lot of people when I just talk to them face to face are actually quite interested once I tell them a few facts about bats that they didn't know before.
That's really great. Yeah, that's cool. So here, I guess you're taking some samples in this photograph and you're putting them, is that a cooler that you have to store them, or what are you looking for there?
So that's a picture of some of my fungal studies. So a big aspect of my research, besides monitoring the bat population, is looking at the natural fungi environment, both on the bats and in the general environment. So to do that, I use treat plates, so you can see stacks of them right there. I use the cooler not really to keep them at an optimal temperature, but just to protect them from getting smashed, because some of the caves have really tight paths we have to crawl through, and anything delicate is going to get broken. We put them in the box to protect them from that.
Oh, cool. That's neat. Does anybody ever get kind of claustrophobic in the caves?
Well, we do occasionally have guests with us that aren't as appreciative of the environment. We'll say, yeah. I've never gotten claustrophobic at all, and John McAlpine, who I do all my research with, not a. But certainly, there's a lot of people who say, "Oh, I could never do that. How do you do that? It's dark, it's cold, it's wet, muddy. You're in really tight spaces." Yeah, a lot of people don't like that.
Yeah, it's I guess kind of a interesting part of your job, or a unique part of your job.
Unique for sure. Yeah.
For sure. So talking about unique, so what to you makes bats special or unique or different in the animal kingdom?
There's a lot of things. Like, for instance, there's one species of bat that's the smallest mammal in the world. There's the bumblebee bat. It only weighs 2 grams, so that's about a dime. It's really small.
Wow,
So
cool.
that's pretty neat. Also, mammals are incredibly diverse. So I just talked about the smallest bat. The largest bats are the flying foxes, which are tropical, and they actually have up to 6-foot wingspan. So there's a huge diversity there
Oh,
in bats. There's actually over 1,200 species in the world, and that makes them the second most diverse group of mammals behind the rodents. Also, they're one of the few mammals that are true hibernators. So during the winter, a lot of bats hibernate in caves and mines, and they go for months, almost 7, 8 months, without eating anything because they hibernate and enables them to survive the winter just on their fat stores. So that's pretty neat.
That's
Certainly
kind of neat.
something a
Yeah.
human could never do. They're also very
Not
long-lived.
at all.
So, for instance, little brown bats, they can live up to 35 years. And when you consider that bats are the size of a mouse, that's pretty exceptional that do that. They're
Mm.
also the only mammals that fly. So flying girls, they're not true flyers. They actually glide. They're not flapping and actively flying like bats do. And bats are pretty interesting to watch flying around at night. I don't know if you've ever seen them foraging over water or around street lights for insects, but that's pretty neat to see.
Yeah, that's cool. I've heard that the bats actually use their the membrane on their wings to help capture the insects rather than like birds will swoop in and grab insects with their mouth. Is that true?
Yes, for sure. Bats have a membrane spread between their legs, and they'll scoop the insect up and then eat out of the membrane. So that's a
Oh,
much
that's
bigger
cool.
target than using their mouth.
Yeah, definitely makes sense, but it's kind of cool when you actually take the time to think about it. It's
There's
a neat
videos of that
strategy.
on YouTube.
Oh, cool. That's a fun thing you can check out with your classroom, the YouTube videos of bats swooping up insects. So why are bats so important? There's lots going on in the news right now. Maybe you can explain a little bit about their importance in the ecosystem and that kind of thing.
So yeah, bats are definitely an important part of the ecosystem. As I mentioned, the bats in Canada only eat insects, and they eat quite a variety of insects. And some of these include important crop pests, so agricultural pests that eat our food, and also forestry pests, so insects that negatively impact the trees and our wood products. A study in the U.S. estimated that in the U.S. alone, not in Canada, bats are worth 3.7 to 56 billion dollars per year in these sort of pastoral services
Hmm.
that they give us. There is no comparable data for Canada, but you can kind of imagine it's similar.
Yeah, that's something else. They definitely help us as a gardener too. Um, Gotta appreciate the bats. They really help us out in that respect too.
For sure.
So now I'll ask you about bats and why they're in trouble, and maybe you can talk a bit more about white nose syndrome, that kind of thing.
So there are several factors that are negatively impacting bats these days. For instance, habitat loss. So bats, like so many other creatures, require forest, so lots of trees and water, wetlands. These are all important to bats. Another issue is wind turbines. So like birds, bats will actually be killed by wind turbines. Mostly these are the tree bats. These bats don't hibernate, they migrate south just like birds. So like birds, they're getting killed by these wind turbines by strikes. And of course,
Mm.
white nose syndrome. So the white nose syndrome, this is what affects the hibernators. So it's been estimated that about 5 to 7 million bats have died so far from this fungal disease. So you can see in this picture here, all the white fuzz is the fungus that causes white nose syndrome. So it grows on any exposed skin surface of the bat, the wings, the nose, the ears, and it actually, unlike more familiar fungal infections like athlete's foot, which are only superficial on the surface of the skin, white nose syndrome, it penetrates into the skin, and it actually replaces muscle tissues, blood vessels. It causes massive damage to the wing membrane. And of course, wings are incredibly important to the life of a bat. That's how they get around. So if it's full
Mm.
of holes and you're losing all these electrolytes and water, this is what causes the death of a bat from starvation and dehydration. It's not lethal to all
Mm.
bats. So there's about 8 species of bats in North America, and only 7 species of bats have died of this disease. Equally either. Some species are more susceptible to the disease than others. So this fungus, it's native to European caves, actually. The hypothesis is that a caver from Europe in Albany, New York, and the fungal spores were probably on his gear or his boots or something, and it got established in that cave. Scientists first noticed bats dying in that cave in 2006. And so white nose syndrome has spread hundreds of kilometers from that epicenter every year since then. It has a huge range now. It's about halfway across the continent. And it's from Alabama all the way to Quebec and Ontario.
Wow. Is it expected to spread further than that?
Yes, we are expected to go further west, for sure. And there's a whole bunch of bat species that occur in the not the east. So the number of bat species affected is going to increase as well. We're not sure how far south it can, because the fungus can only grow below 20 degrees. Anything above 20 degrees is too hot. The fungus won't survive. So we keep expecting there to be a southern limit beyond which the white nose syndrome won't spread. But Alabama is pretty far south. It won't hit Mexico.
Oh gosh, yeah. It's probably a lot of bat disease. The further you go, I imagine there's bats. Backwards. So now, everyone's going to want to know how they can help, and what can you do? It sounds like white nose syndrome is pretty serious. Maybe you can just touch on that.
Right. So in terms of white nose syndrome, there's not too much people can do. We haven't really found a solution to it yet. The main thing is to try to prevent the further spread of the fungus. So make sure you keep out of caves. Researchers follow strict decontamination protocols to prevent human-caused spread of the fungus. Of course, unfortunately, the spread we think is mostly caused by the bats themselves. They're very mobile. They'll go hundreds of kilometers from cave to cave and spread the fungus that way. But aside from that, you certainly want to educate others about bats and how interesting they are and not scary. If you have a maternity colony in your house, so during the summer, females will actually set up a nursery in people's attics or their old barns, and not everyone likes that so much. So there are certain ways you can exclude these bats from your house without exterminating them all, and you certainly want those sorts of protocols to prevent further mortality of bats by humans. And also, reducing pesticide use can help, because since bats eat insects, you can get this bioaccumulation of pesticides in their diet, which can be detrimental to them for sure. I think you wanted to go over the Fox project.
Yeah, so CWF right now has a really cool project going on. We are giving away 400 bat box houses in an effort to just, see what kind of species we're getting in them, see if there's any activity at all. So this is a way that you can kind of help, maybe not help with white nose syndrome directly, but help other bats in general. And you can contact us to get your free bats. And in exchange, we do ask that you provide us with a monthly report and let us know how the installation goes. So we'll send you a whole kit, and then you put it together. There's a whole YouTube video available online to show you how to do that, with lots of great tips on where to put your bat box and how to put it all together. So this is my contact information. If you contact me directly, I will send you the information that you need to send me back, and we will get the bat box house to you quicker than if you just went online, but that's an option too. You can go to helpthebats.ca and fill out a form there. So yeah, that's that. If you guys have questions, please type them in, or again, you can virtually raise your hand on this next thing, and I can enable your microphone. So if any of your kids in the classroom have questions, or if you're an individual that has a question, please feel free. And I can see, I think there's a few people typing in the chat here. He's asking if the boxes will be sent soon. Okay, so we had a bit of a delay in the shipping of our boxes to the main office, but they are here, and there is a team in the back right now as we speak that are putting everything together and hopefully sending that out really soon. If you don't get it in the next week, just send me an email and let me know, and I'll try to sort that out for you. And I can see someone else is typing as well, so we'll just hang out for a minute and see how that goes. So maybe you can answer this. Somebody's asking if there's a technique that we could recommend to attract bats to a bat box.
Mostly it depends on where you place your bat house. So you want it as hot and get. Make sure that you place it in best on your house in an area that receives at least 8 hours of direct sunlight per day. Make sure the bat box is black because you really that hot to try to attract the bats. Also, some people, one method you can do is get some bat box, have the scent attract bats. I've heard of that method, but I don't know how effective that is, and of course it's not exactly easy. Basically, it's just putting your bat box in an area where you get maximum heat and just waiting mostly. You're pretty unlikely to get bats in the freezer of your bat box being up. You generally, the longer you wait, the higher the probability that they're going to find it. And also, if your bat box is near within a few hundred meters of water or a forest, it can increase your success rate.
Yeah, those are some great tips. I've also heard that if you plant night blooming plants, that can attract different moths and insects to your garden that bats could eat. So if you're a gardener, that's maybe one way to go about it. Let's see. The other questions. So how long can bats fly without resting? Do you know that answer?
Not offhand, but I would expect many hours for sure, especially the migrators. But that's something I'd have to look up.
Yeah. Someone else has a question here. They're asking that we can.
Well, as you mentioned, planting night blooming flowers in your garden can increase the number of moths in your garden and help them that way. And also, as I mentioned, just if you have bats in your house, it's best if you can tolerate them instead of trying to get rid of them. And of course, keeping out of caves. Another thing you can do actually is look into some of the mines in your area. So often mines are bulldozed shut to prevent humans from entering them in terms of health and safety. But I have heard of cases where this happens, and they actually entomb a whole colony of bats in these
really
mines.
Neat. And what would you say if you had like a bat colony in your attic? Is it best to call like a humane wildlife control, or should you try to ever deal with it yourself?
The bats can still get in and out. You can try to deal with it yourself. It depends what time of year you find the colony. For instance, I had an email the other day of a lady who had a colony in her house. But right now, June, this is when they're giving birth to pups. So this is not the time of year you want to try to get rid of them. If you exclude the adults from the roost, you're going to have all these babies that can't fly trapped. So you don't want to do that. The baby bats will be flying by early August. So by September, that's a good time to exclude the bats. So you if you can find all the holes where the bats are getting in and just seal them. That's the best way to get rid of that. Another thing you can do is to put up a bat box nearby, and the bats may move to that. It's pretty unlikely because your attic
That's
is
great.
pretty nice.
Another question here. Somebody is asking, they live in the Toronto area, and they're wondering if there's anybody that can help them kind of attract a bat colony into their co-op building, or is this even a good idea? I don't know if you have any recommendations there.
I'm not quite sure what a co-op building is. Like, is there sort of an attic area away from the human-occupied part of the house? Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be the way.
And just trying to attract bats in.
And can they damage a building structurally if they're left kind of unchecked? Like if you've got bats in your attic or in your barn, and let's say nobody's living there, is it a hazard in any way to the building or to people, or?
Not so much to the people, as long as the bats can't get into the living space. But yeah, over time, they're going to deposit a lot of guano in the area where they're roosting. So this builds up on the floor, and it does produce quite the odor, a strong odor, which can be not so pleasant to the humans for sure. And you're going to get stains.
So somebody's asking if all bats are black.
It really won't make the building unsound structurally.
Oh, cool.
Not at all. They come in a huge range of colors. There's pure white bats in the tropics, and actually in Canada there's the red bat. Actually, I have one right here. I can show you. And they're quite red. They're pretty interesting. So there's that one. And there's also the hoary bat. So this one is a bit silvery and not black at all.
Cool.
I don't know if you can see that. But yeah,
somebody is asking about white nose syndrome. If bats, or can bats infected with white nose syndrome?
But no, there's.
Can they heal if they survive the winter in the cave?
Yes, they can. And actually, bats taken into captivity during the winter, if they're fed and watered, they can survive as well. But there's no guarantee that they'll survive. It depends how much damage they got during the winter and how their general physical condition. So if they're really starved and their wings are really damaged, they're not going to be able to fly around and collect enough insects to be able to survive the summer. Another issue is that during the winter, they don't have any immune response to the infection. During hibernation, bats downregulate their immune system to save energy. But when they wake up in the spring, their immune system also wakes up, and it really strongly reacts to the white nose fungus, so it can defeat it. But like in AIDS patients, sometimes it goes overboard and starts attacking the bat's own tissues, so it actually makes them worse instead of better. So yes, they can survive, but there's certainly no guarantee. And even if they do survive, they may be in so poor physical condition that they can't reproduce. So this is going to further...
So we have a comment that you might like to hear. I guess somebody has a classroom and their students were super impressed that there are so many colors of bats. So that's kind of a fun little thing that, you know, it's something simple, but you know, you might not know. That's really cool. Another question. Can they fly with holes in their wings? Or could they ever get holes in their wings? Or why would they have holes in their wings?
Yeah. It's actually pretty common for bats to get holes in their wings. Like when they're flying through the forest, you know, there's sticks everywhere, and they do get, even healthy bats get holes in their wings.
Oh, that's really neat.
It's actually really impressive how damaged their wings can be in terms of just
I think that about wraps it up. Thanks so much, Karen, for taking time out of your day to come and chat with us. It was super interesting, and I think everyone's learned a lot. So, thank you very much. And again, for classrooms out there or groups, if you would like your bat box, just contact me at this email address, and I'll get that to you as soon as I can.
No problem.
All right, thanks, everyone.